Okay, welcome everyone. Great to see you here at the OWASP London chapter meetup. We are live streaming here on YouTube. As you can see, we are tonight in this great venue from Just Eat Takeaway, kindly organized by Sherif and sponsored by Smithy Security. Your food and drink. Sherif, do you want to say a couple of words?
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. We're really happy to have you here again. Just a couple of things for admin. As you know, the bathrooms are at the end. You have the fobs in order to gain access and to come back. When you're done at the end of the event, please leave the fobs here, and hope you enjoy the event and the talks. We're really delighted and excited to see Tanya, Katie, and also Smithy also doing a presentation. And what else? There's one more thing. Oh yeah, we also have obviously our fire marshal and first aiders. Should there be anything else?
Alarm expected.
No fire alarm expected. So if you do hear something, it's time to go for sure. All right. Well, thank you everyone. Please enjoy the event.
All right. Thanks, Sherif. Right, a few more things to add. Obviously, if you're registered, you should get the name sticker. If you haven't got yours, they're at the registration table outside. You do need this key fob. If you haven't collected one, you need to have one to get back in. Obviously, toilets are outside, and you need to make sure you use this to get back in. If you haven't used our swag table, we have a swag table in the corner, right, with lots of stickers, socks, and I think there was a t-shirt there before. Okay, so please make sure you do collect the swag. And we have Roy from BCS who has an announcement.
Okay. Hi there. So thank you for giving me the floor, Sam. Sam was a little bit shy and didn't want to boast. He's going to be speaking at a BCS event the 30th of this month. It's at the BCS head office in London. We'll also be doing it hybrid so people can join online. So if you would like to register for that, it's absolutely free. It's open to BCS and non-BCS members in the same way that the OWASP events are run. And you just need to go to BCS DevSecOps group online and you will find the link there and you can register, but you do need to register to get in. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much, Ray. Okay, so for those of you who don't know us, my name is Sam Stepayan, and this is Sherif Mansour. We are OWASP chapter OWASP London chapter leaders. We have the third chapter leader, Andra Letts. Unfortunately, she's feeling under the weather tonight. I think there is a nasty flu virus going around, so she sends her excuses. If you are going to, if you're going to tweet about this tonight's event, please make sure that you use OWASP London hashtag. Remind about our code of conduct. So we want you to be nice and respectful to each other. We are very welcoming and friendly community. If you have any questions relating or issues related to code of conduct, please do find myself or Sherif. But please be nice and respectful. Agenda for tonight, I'm going to do an introduction. See this part of this intro and welcome slide deck. I'm going to tell you about upcoming conferences and few new projects from OWASP that you should pay attention to. And then we're going to have Dr. Katie Paxton-Fear talking about API hacking. Then we're going to have a break. Then we're going to have Tanya Janca speaking about how to mature your application security program. And then we're going to have Spyros talking to us what is Agentic AI, because apparently that's the news for this year, but I have no idea what that is. And we need to stick around until that talk and after that talk, because there will be a raffle prize. And then from 9 p.m. there will be an after party. So we're going to go to the pub called The Conductor, which is literally, if you leave the building and turn left, you will see it there. Raffle prize for tonight, right, consists of two parts. There's a Raspberry Pi and there's this Picade console, which is basically a retro gaming console, which is based on Raspberry Pi. So you need to scan this code, this QR code, to enter the raffle. At 8:50 p.m. there will be a raffle. We will have a spinning wheel of names. This is why you need to have your sticker, not just to network and say, hi, my name is Sam or whatever, right? But also when you win the prize, we need to make sure that the the name on the badge matches the name on the spinning wheel. So don't register for a raffle with some Mickey Mouse name, please. Right. How many people are for the first time at our events tonight? Wow, it's unbelievable. So we're very glad you managed to find us. And if you want to make sure you don't miss the next event, these are all the different ways how you can follow us. So we have a web page. We also have an old-fashioned mailing list, which is available on our web page. We are on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We are on Meetup. Also, we're Eventbrite. We're on LinkedIn, where you can follow us. We are also on Blue Sky, for those of you who joined Blue Sky recently. We also are on Slack, so OWASP has a Slack, and we have a channel there called Chapter London. And of course, we're also on YouTube, so people are watching us on YouTube right now on our channel, which is also OWASP London. So these are all the various ways that you can follow us to make sure that you don't miss the next event. Okay, next thing, I will need to play the OWASP intro video, which is usually has audio issues. So let me see if I can use my speakers.
OWASP is a nonprofit that stands for the Open Web Application Security Project. OWASP is a community of developers, technologists, and evangelists improving the security of software through tools and resources. OWASP has 100 plus active projects, and new project applications are submitted weekly. Projects are open source and are built by our community of volunteers, people just like you. Community and networking. There are hundreds of local chapters worldwide and thousands of members. Meetings are free and open to everyone. They include training, talks, and networking opportunities. Education and training. OWASP hosts many events each year. They are a great way to improve your skills, build your professional network, and learn about new trends in the industry. One of the many ways you can get involved is to become a member. The membership benefits include discounts for events and trainings, your own OWASP email address and Google Workspace access, a vote in our OWASP Global Board elections. And recently, OWASP added a brand new member benefit, access to hands-on application security training through the OWASP Secure Flag Open Platform. Join us and become a member today.
Awesome. This time looks like I figured out how to use the audio, which is good. Well, this video, okay. And then we went to the next video, which I will cancel. Wonderful. And next. So next we have a reminder of the OWASP membership benefits that you can get from the OWASP portal. If you become an OWASP member, there are quite a few benefits available to you. So it's not just Secure Flag. We have other platforms which are offering their services to OWASP members as a complimentary service. We do have a new OWASP membership benefit, which is a code bashing platform, which is a developer training platform by Checkmarks. So if you join OWASP as a member, this will be available to you at no extra cost. Okay, so OWASP membership, as you heard already, costs $50 a year. Students get a discount. You can also join as a corporate supporter if you're a company, and if you want to join as a member, just visit owasp.org/membership. Apart from all the benefits that you heard already of why to become a OWASP member and obviously donate $50 to our nonprofit, there's one extra benefit that many people don't know about. There is this exclusive OWASP member sticker. This is a retro sticker with a retro OWASP logo. I only have a small batch of them remaining. So if you become an OWASP member tonight, so if you go and join OWASP and then show me the confirmation email from Stripe that you joined, you will get this sticker. So for those of you who missed the board elections, we have two new board members. We have Ashwini and Harold joining us on board this year. So the elections were in November. I'd also like to say a big thank you to all the OWASP corporate supporters. If your organization is not yet a supporter, you can donate to OWASP and enjoy great benefits of this fantastic community. We at OWASP London, we're very proud that we have quite a lot of organizations specifically supporting our chapter. You can see their logos on the screen right now. And if you would like to join, please do come and talk to myself and Sherif on how you can become an OWASP London supporter. And you don't have to donate money. You can provide your venue. And these are all the organizations which provided their venues for our meetups. I'd like to say big thank you to Justin Takeaway and Sherif for providing this venue. And can we have a big round of applause for Smithy for pizza and beer? Good. Cool, we'll proceed. Okay, so news from OWASP. We have brand new membership system, something called Association Management System. It's a system called GlueUp. So it went live for membership. So if you want to become a member now, you will actually go through it. It will replace all the chapter and project management as well. The membership management is already there. The chapter and project management will be available in the next few weeks. So this is coming up. Another thing that I do here at OWASP London, that people who come to this event, they know that I also give away NFTs. So there is a type of NFT called Proof of Attendance Protocol or POAP. So these are kind of digital stickers that rather than sticking on your laptop, you can collect in your crypto wallet. And we have one for each event. And this is the one that I have for this event. It has a cute OWASP with a winter hat and some snowflakes because the weather was quite cold. So there is a unique digital sticker for each of us. And if you want to collect this digital sticker, digital NFT, please come and see me. You have to scan a QR code from my phone. And then obviously it will ask for your wallet address or email address where you can mint this NFT to go into your crypto wallet. We also have a merchandise store, owas.org/store, where you can buy some OWASP merch, like a t-shirt, right? And obviously, every single purchase there also includes a donation to OWASP Foundation. Now, big announcement of conferences. We have an OWASP Global AppSec Europe conference in Barcelona last week of May. So registrations are open. So you can Google or please do scan the QR code. If you are an organization who wants to train their developers how to code securely, or you want to make sure that your security engineers get good training, please do send them to this conference. If you're an organization who wishes to sponsor the conference and have a booth, yeah, please do contact us as well, because there is a sponsorship pack available as well. And also, if you are a security professional who has something to say and you want to share some of your awesome research, call for speakers is still open. So if you'd like to present at OWASP Global AppSec Barcelona, you have 18 days left, less now. The call for speakers ends on 31st of January. So if you scan this QR code, we'll take you to the Sessionize page, where you will be able to submit your talk proposal if you would like to be considered for this awesome event. Quick note about OWASP projects. OWASP has over 250 open source and free projects, which are available on owas.org/projects. We have flagship projects, lab projects, and incubator projects, 3 big categories. The number of projects constantly grows. Probably the most famous project at OWASP, OWASP Top 10, but the original OWASP Top 10 was for OWASP Top 10 for web applications. Now we have OWASP Top 10 for LLM applications. AI is the latest hype. So do scan the QR code to download this document, because if you want to know how to implement AI securely, what are the risks of implementing LLMs, you will find out. And this document, there's a brand new update for 2025. Before we go into the talks, because there are so many of you, as our presenters are speaking and you have a question in your mind, you can actually ask them online. If you go to slido.com/OWASP, you will have a chance to ask a question there. And obviously, from the audience here, if you can raise your hand as well, we have this throwable microphones that we can throw it at you, you catch it, and then you ask your question, and then we need to put it back on its cradle to make sure it's muted. Otherwise, it's going to be horrible feedback. And first, we have Dr. Katie Paxton-Fear. She's going to talk to us about API hacking for beginners. So Dr. Katie Paxton-Fear is a lecturer at Manchester Metropolitan University, and she actually has a PhD in machine learning and AI, way before machine learning and AI were the buzzwords. She's also famous by creating lots of YouTube videos, educational videos on hacking, on bug bounty. And Katie was actually featured as one of the BBC articles about bug bounty hunters. She's probably one of the most famous bug bounty hunters in the world, dare I say. And let's all welcome Katie. So, Katie, I have your slides and I have a clicker for you.
Thank you very much. Well, I hope you're all prepared to be very disappointed, because that really does make me sound much better at things than I actually am. So hi, my name is Katie. I would describe myself as an occasional bug bounty hunter, cybersecurity YouTuber, lecturer. I also work as a principal security researcher at a company called Traceable, and I am still awaiting my my award for inventing more hours in the day, and certainly not half doing a lot of things. So today I'm going to be talking about APIs, but specifically API hacking. Now, any single time someone is like, I want to get into hacking, where should I start? I always recommend APIs. And I actually think APIs are some of the most accessible places to actually get started in hacking. And certainly if you've never had a go at hacking, or it's maybe something you're interested in, but you've never had the opportunity or like the desire to kind of go deeply, or maybe it's been super intimidating for you, I hope this talk will inspire you to have a go, because honestly, it's not that hard. Like APIs are full of security vulnerabilities. They are often built incorrectly. And honestly, from an attacker's point of view, it's kind of easy. So what is an API? So fundamentally, an API is a type of application that is not designed to be consumed by humans. So this is not an application that you interact with. Instead, it's meant to be consumed by other applications. The best way to think about it is kind of like a waiter in a restaurant. They act as an API between your table and the kitchen, right? So they kind of handle the communication of what you wanted. And there's a lot of reasons why organizations and developers like using APIs. But fundamentally, it just allows them to kind of combine their efforts. You know, typically, if you're launching a new product, you're going to need an app. You're going to need lots of apps, because you're going to need an iOS app and an Android app and a web app and maybe a desktop app, and maybe a Mac app and a Windows app. And that's a lot of apps. And you should read that as that costs a lot of money for developers. So instead, if you develop an API and then everything connects via the API, hey, that is like 2 whole jobs that you don't even need to hire for anymore. Now, sometimes these APIs are developed like intentionally for third parties. So think about the Twitter developer API, the Reddit API. They're designed for kind of integrating their thing with other organizations. Now, typically, when I talk about APIs, I'm not talking about developer APIs. I'm talking about APIs that kind of keep applications moving. They are usually for something like Twitter will have its own API in the background. So the way APIs talk to each other is using something called JSON. So JSON looks really scary. And every single time people are like get overwhelmed with API hacking, it's because they just see JSON as a response instead of like HTML. I promise you, this is much easier to read than any Bootstrap website I've ever seen. It uses a key value pair. So it's this way of representing complex objects in text. Now, if you're not familiar with JSON, but you want to do API hacking, this is something you're going to have to learn, because JSON is basically what every API connects via. Most APIs are RESTful APIs. GraphQL uses JSON. You will see it everywhere, especially when you know what to look for. You're like, oh, that's a JWT token. That's JSON. That's base64 encoded JSON. It really is everywhere. There's a lot of different types of API, and they all have their kind of uses. So there are RESTful APIs. This is your bog standard default API. You have batched APIs. These APIs take a bunch of requests and squash it down into a single request. There's things like GraphQL. And if you're curious about GraphQL, I did a talk at OWASP London during the pandemic about GraphQL. So you can find out more in that talk. But there are also SOAP, which is kind of your legacy API, and gRPC, which are remote procedure calls, which quite frankly are the scary kinds of API. So maybe don't look at those. I'm going to be focusing on RESTful APIs, because RESTful APIs are fundamentally the most common APIs. When you see these, you see them everywhere. Like I had a problem. I was booking some flights and I couldn't select my seat. So I went into the web browser console, and it's an API. And it turns out if I just fiddled with the request, I could book those seats I wanted, even though the application was broken, which I certainly do not condone doing. So CRUD. CRUD is a really nice term that developers use when talking about the fundamental things an application does. So an application is made up of resources. You're on Twitter, you have tweets. You're on Facebook, you have posts. You're on Reddit, you have subreddits, you have users, all of these resources. And then for each of these resources, you have a unique API endpoint. And those endpoints are the create, the read, the update, delete, CRUD. Now, what you may notice from seeing this is that, hang on a second, applications have a lot of functionality. Think about Just Eat. You've got takeaways, you've got orders, you've got menus, you've got menu items, you have add-ons for those menu items, you have the idea of a basket, having two baskets open with two different restaurants, you've got drivers, you've got pickups. And each one of these needs at least 4 API endpoints. At that point, you are looking at a massive explosion in your attack surface. And that is why APIs are so hard to do security on, because they end up being huge. And what ends up happening is when these APIs are massive, you end up in this situation where developers and security teams don't really know what's going on in an API. They make a small mistake a year ago and it doesn't come up for months. And even then it comes up on a random test. And even then it's only in specific circumstances. You just don't notice things. On the attacker point of view, it's really annoying because we need to guess a lot of names and a lot of the ways APIs work. Now, if you think about your prediction, well, okay, if I'm looking at an API and it's for Just Eat, I'm going to have orders, I'm going to have restaurants, I'm going to have drivers, I'm going to have accounts. And if you're looking at YouTube, you've got videos. You can start to predict these things. However, they are often super customizable. Now, one of the great ways you can look at APIs is through developer APIs. Now, I certainly have not chosen these particular developer APIs for any reason. Certainly not. But developer APIs are often available for free. And the idea is that you integrate with their API and you integrate their stuff into your product, and then they get wider adoption of what they're looking at. So this really helped Twitter and Reddit become such big social media companies because a lot of companies integrated Twitter searching for trends or APIs on Reddit for seeing sentiment across different subreddits. And then, of course, once they've built their business model around that, you then start charging for it. RESTful APIs. So RESTful APIs are really challenging to enumerate because you have to guess the resource names. Now, there are some word lists, and certainly if you come and be like, Katie, what's the API word list that I need to use? There are some good ones. Kite Runner is very good. I understand that Kite Runner's development has kind of stalled. So I don't know if the tool still works, but it does have this massive list of API endpoints that it's kind of got procedurally. Now, I also have some videos about API word lists and about all of these, how to use these tools. I will be honest with you, I don't use them. People ask me for the videos on them, so I make the videos because YouTuber. But actually, I don't use them. My version of reconnaissance is click all the buttons. The main way I discover APIs is simply click the buttons. So, for example, you'll often be in a situation, like say you're using Zoom, and you probably only use Zoom to join a meeting, or maybe like you unmute your microphone, you start your camera, whatever. Did you know Zoom has this entire feature about whiteboards and clips and applications that can go into third parties? Because I do, because it had a vulnerability in it. And with all of that, you just keep on pressing buttons, and they're all API endpoints. So if anybody asks why you're getting a takeaway midweek at like 9 p.m. because you can't be bothered to cook, that's API reconnaissance. People often ask me about my API hacking toolbox as well. Again, crushingly disappointing to actually hear this. I don't use like a big toolbox. I don't use complex tools. I use Burp Suite. I don't even pay for Burp, right? I use the free version of Burp, and that's it. So fundamentally, I'm really interacting with this API as like literally just raw requests and responses. The only addition I do put onto this is this one on the side. It's called PwnFox. There's also Autochrome as well. It colors the tabs. That's it. That's all it does. It makes the tabs different colors. So when you're logged in with different accounts, you can check to make sure you haven't accidentally logged into your attacker account instead of your victim account, and you haven't reported a security vulnerability, which is absolutely not an issue at all. And you've just wasted like 10 people's time reporting it because you're like, that's super serious. Instead, it's colored tabs. Now, in terms of what vulnerabilities to find, OWASP does have the OWASP API top 10. And broadly, I think you can put them under these like 3 categories. So category 1 is access control. If you take nothing else from this presentation at all, broken access control is the most common finding on any API. Like I will go into tests with multi-million-dollar like security teams that have a security budget that is like through the roof. They'll have access control issues. I will speak to a small business and they have access control issues. Access control is the number one. And if you're looking like, I want to get into bug bounty hunting, I want to get into hacking, what should I look for? Access control issues. I'll talk a bit more about it. They're kind of annoying to hunt for, but they are very, very common. And confusingly, the OWASP API top 10 has it split up into 3 different ways. They are fundamentally the same thing. You can do something to an object you don't own. You can delete somebody else's tweet. You can delete a post on a forum when you're not an administrator. You can access a property, so credit card information of an order that's not yours. The next is identity and authentication. So really, this comes under broken authentication. There's lots of ways this can be broken in APIs. Saying that, most of it is just like flows of the way authentication works. This is your password reset flaws. You might be thinking, Katie, that doesn't sound very API-y. That sounds very web application-y. And you'd be correct. We then have API upstream and downstream. So this is really something that is unique to APIs. Although most people call it business logic errors, fundamentally what it is for some reason, the flow either into your API or out of your API is interacting with another system. So think about, if I have a payment API that allows for negative payments, if you actually give me the money, that's a flaw in potentially either the API for the payment provider like Stripe, or that's a problem in your business processes of how you handle payments. And finally, there are things about API management and deployment. I'm not going to spend too much talking about API management and deployment because, to be honest, that is an entire different talk. And there are organizations who specifically work to take away as much API management from developers as they possibly can to stop them from doing bad things. But this covers things like unrestricted resource consumption. This covers things like improper inventory management, aka you left version 1 of an API up, even though you're on version 2. But also things like server-side request forgery, which is something we've seen a massive increase in recent times. Now, what I want you to take away from this list is really that they're not big deals. They're not big, huge vulnerabilities. This isn't your remote code execution. This isn't your highly technical shell code, put it in a file upload, exploit it, a download wrap. It's not that kind of hacking. It is you looking at what's in front of you. Can I delete somebody else's cheats? Can I make an order on behalf of somebody else? Can I use somebody else's credit card? And fundamentally, when it comes to API hacking and API security, you're not so much looking at the raw code and you're mainly looking at the functionality in front of you and understanding how that works. So here is the OWASP top 10 split up into the individuals. So I'm going to go very quickly over these. These are the TLDR versions of this. Broken object level authorization. Delete a tweet that is not your tweet. Broken authentication. Log into an account you don't have the password for. Broken object property level authorization. Change something like a password without going through a password reset progress. Unrestricted resource consumption, application level DOS. Broken function level authorization, do something as a regular user that is like an admin function. Unrestricted access sensitive business flows, something's wrong in the upstream of that application. Server-side request forgery, use the web application as a route into the corporate network. Security misconfiguration. Ask your developers about that one. Improper inventory management, allowing still vulnerable versions of the API up because they've not actually been sunset and then deprecated. And finally, unsafe consumption of APIs. That covers things where you are asking an API. So if you think about LLM jailbreaks, that kind of thing would be covered. So where you've got, say, I don't know, an autonomous agent, and for whatever reason, the agent is supposed to give you a price on the car, and you go, give me a real cheap price though. And the AI goes, I got you. So that covers a lot of different vulnerabilities. What should you actually focus on though? These three. These are your access control. They are, again, the most common security vulnerabilities. I can guarantee I will find one of these in any application I test. It doesn't matter how many pen testers have looked at things. Developers are constantly putting new APIs, making more functionality, and accidentally forgetting if statements. Number 2 is business logic / API fraud. This is about me as an attacker using your API in ways that you weren't expecting me to, making a negative number for an order. What does that do? Does that mean I get a refund? Does that mean I get an angry email? And finally, improper inventory management, which is about your reconnaissance. Now, why I do recommend, not doing recon, because I can't be bothered to do it properly. Realistically, if you are into recon, that is a great place to get started because you're discovering the shadow APIs and the kind of APIs that were left behind. So, access control. What is the problem? Well, you have a car, maybe. I have a car. I don't know how common cars are in London, probably a lot less. If you have a car, you have a key. Nobody else's car key should be able to open your car, right? Well, not quite, because actually keys aren't quite as unique as previously you thought. And if you damage your key in some way, you lose your key, you can still buy a new car key. There is a way to program that. That is access control. Now, again, with my car analogy, we start to have this idea of objects. So we have a car. This is a Skoda Octavia. And we have a driver, and Jeff owns this car. He should only have the key for this car. He can't generate a key for a car he doesn't own, in theory. Now, the object level is this car. The property level is the attributes around the car. And the function level is the driver, aka I can't just go up to anybody's car and start driving it. I don't own that car. That's your functional level. You can't, as a random passerby, just go and start somebody's car. That's the object level. And you can't go in there and remove all the badges off the car and then replace it with something else and then adjust the property level, which is a really confusing way of separating the same vulnerability in 3 ways. And it gets worse because then you also have rent-a-car operations. Now, in rent-a-car operations, you actually do want to open somebody else's car because they only own it for so long. And that's when you start to have tenancy and SaaS applications. And then your simple CRUD of create a new task, delete a task, then becomes, well, are you in the right organization? Do you have the right permission levels? And that is fundamentally what I am hacking. I am checking that. There's a hacker, his name's Douglas Day, or Archangel D-Day. He has a really great way of putting this, which is look for no's. So look at where an application says you shouldn't be able to do something and check whether or not that's the case. And when it comes to API hacking, that's kind of fundamentally all we're doing is looking for no's. So here's my TLDR of all of the access controls. Cross-tenant, accessing another tenant's object without being a member, accessing a OneDrive of another organization. Bowler, accessing an object owned by another user. Broken function, accessing an admin function. And broken property, being able to change or view a property without the proper method, bypassing the change reset requiring your previous password. And that's kind of how I hack things. Oh, actually, I'm going to skip these. Wow. Okay, right. So I'm going to play a game if it works. I don't know whether or not it's going to work, but I'm going to play a game. It's called Name That Vulnerability. So you know about the same amount about API hacking, if not more, than I did when I found my first API security vulnerability. So hopefully you should be able to scan the QR code. I promise the QR code is safe. Or join. I do swear this is a perfectly legitimate code. But hopefully you'll be able to join the presentation. I'll give a few moments. Oh, I think it's not working. Sorry. That's what happens when you do live demos. Anyway, that's fine. I'm going to just test your API security knowledge. I'm just going to ask you to stick your hands up. So you're testing an online store that sells clothing using a payment provider API to check out. Think Stripe. You can include a cross-site scripting payload in your address when checking out with a third party. In the shop's admin center in Shopify, the XSS payload fires. Put your hand up if you think, I'm going to give you the 4 options first. That is broken object level authorization. That is API upstream downstream problems, or it is authentication problems. Okay. So those themes. So is it access control, API upstream and downstream, or broken authentication issues? Stick your hand up if you think it is access control related. Put your hand up if you think it is related to the API upstream and downstream. And put your hand up if you think it is related to authentication. Okay, interesting. You could probably make the argument that it could be. But definitely API upstream, downstream. I think that is something that's often really overlooked, which is kind of unique to APIs because they are so interconnected. Okay, question 2. A mobile app that easily lets you send and receive money using email or phone numbers. So think, wow, like PayPal, I guess. So you can make a transfer from an account you're not logged into only if you're logged into the receiving account. So you could send yourself money, you can't send somebody else money. However, it's all coming from an account you don't control. Put your hand up if you think that is authentication related. Put your hand up if you think it's access control related. Put your hand up if you think that's API upstream, downstream. And stick your hand up if you think that is API deployment related. Yeah, it's access control. That is classic access control. And that is actually the first vulnerability I ever found. It really was literally that easy. So I'm going to do one more little quiz question. And then I'll open the floor to Q&A. So it's a blogging application. You notice that when you're testing, the plugins have a hard-coded secret for a JWT, which is a JSON Web Token. You're able to spoof a valid JWT for your own blog or for others. Stick your hand up if you think that is access control related, API versioning related, authentication related. Yeah, absolutely right. That's a problem with logging in and logging off. So thank you very much, everybody. If you have questions, please feel free to ask me. If you don't have questions,
I'm sure there will be questions. All right. Okay. 1 second. I need to
throw the mic. Is it an actual throwable mic?
Thank you. Hello. Yeah, hi. This is Amit here. A very interesting talk on the access control related top 10. I have a query on the GraphQL API.
Yeah.
This is a modern way of nowadays using enterprises start using GraphQL. So what do you think the risks are to the GraphQL architecture, and is there a specific risk which you want to share to us?
That's a really good question. So if you've never seen GraphQL, the idea is that instead of using APIs as distinct endpoints, you instead tell the API what you want, kind of like an SQL query, but it's written in this. It's really cool. If you've not seen it like being used as like a former developer who used to make APIs, it is so cool. But it does have some issues. So obviously you expose quite a lot of your API structure simply from GraphQL. A lot of people say that's a security vulnerability. That's not a security vulnerability. GraphQL introspection is not a security vulnerability at all. It is intended as part of how it works. But honestly, when it comes to GraphQL, there's kind of no difference. You know, some of the vulnerabilities I found in GraphQL servers are things like application level DOSes, because you can use nested queries. You can go backwards and forwards and put it in a recursive loop. That's really fun. It breaks a lot of GraphQL servers. And the other side is just access control issues, you know, especially when it comes to the property level. I see it a ton in GraphQL APIs as well. Honestly, they're kind of, while as a developer, I love them, they are such a cool way of consuming an API. from a security testing standpoint, it's just another way to interact with them. You know, you have to learn the query language. You kind of have to learn its like little quirks, little like things that make it a little bit weird. But actually, fundamentally, it doesn't change the way we interact with an API more than just it's a different language. In terms of testing GraphQL, I really recommend the GraphQL introspection query. You can find it everywhere. There's a good one on Payload All the Things. They've got the different encodes. And then getting something like InQL or getting one of the GraphQL add-ons into Burp just to help you with the syntax highlighting, and so you can kind of structure it. But honestly, the difference is like academic from a security testing standpoint. It's just a different way of interacting with it.
Katie, and just to add that Katie did present a talk on API hacking back in the pandemic times, which is available recording on OWASP London YouTube channel, and it actually does have a whole section about GraphQL. So if you're interested,
and a demo as well,
the live demo. Right. Next question. Someone. Okay, there was a question online. Okay. Could you please share your thoughts on implementing secure API access using FAPI2 or FAPI2, which is financial grade API? Do you know anything about it?
That is very, very precise, and I do not know it off the top of my head, I'm afraid. However, I will say a lot in the finance space when it comes to regulation, when you've got your PCI DSS or your open banking or whatever, quite a lot of those regulations kind of build in security as part of it, but the actual implementation of it, a lot of them are being way more flexible on how you do it. Like PCI DSS 4.0, for example, the main changes in that version are all about like how you can be a bit more flexible in implementing those requirements, which I think is good to see. While I don't have like a specific answer for financial APIs, I will say that I think the industry in general is moving to a better place of not requiring outdated security practices and giving that flexibility back.
Great. Thanks, Katie. There's one more question online, which was, what was the biggest security flaw you have found?
The biggest? Okay, right. So it depends on how you ask the question. I will give you the most impactful one, and I will tell you the one that paid the best. So the most impactful finding I ever found, I was testing an airport application. I can't go into too much detail on what exactly it did, but you know when they have like D-Day, like memorial events, and they'll get like the red arrows to fly over or historic aircraft to fly over? It was basically a request to like, oh, could you please, you know, fly over my event at 12:30? I've got like a bunch of, you know, D-Day veterans that I'm hosting. It's that kind of thing. So you could request that airplanes fly over. And when you provided these requests, you had to tell it some information. So who you were, you know, are you important enough to ask if, you know, some like we can fly like £1 million historical artifacts above you, you know, is this going to be a big event, that kind of thing. So you had to include some details about the event, your name, who the event was for, the nearest airport, the size of the runway of that airport, and a bunch of other details, you know, what services are available at the airport, that kind of thing. I was like, okay, great. So I was testing it and I found a broken access control. Much like an airline booking system or like a hotel booking system, you just had to give it your last name and email address. If you had that information, then you could see basically any request for a flyby. Obviously, that is an issue in itself, because you can go onto LinkedIn and find those real easy. But what you were able to do from that is change the airport information. Now, does that matter? Well, it turns out if you say you've got a really long runway and you don't, the planes just kind of keep going. And obviously for historic aircraft, That might be the only aircraft left of that generation. That might be tenderly cared for by volunteers in their free time. That might be thousands of pounds of like investment into actually getting it flying, let alone the cost of the aircraft itself that is often bared through charities, right? But you could change the length of the runway. So I could go in there and say, you know, my nearest runway is Manchester Aerodrome, and we have a big enough runway for a 747. And the planes just land and keep going, and you cause a massive air crash and you kill people. That's the worst vulnerability I've found in terms of like actual human impact. And when I was testing this, I had this realization. I'm like, oh my God, I could have killed somebody. And then I received my £5,000 bounty, and I was like, oh my God, I could have killed somebody. But in terms of my best paying was actually an interesting GraphQL vulnerability, which is one of my favorite vulnerabilities I've ever found. I fingerprinted the exact version of a GraphQL server and interpreter that an application was using error messages from their JSON parser. And I felt like an absolute genius. I was like, my God, I'm a hacker now. That's like my best, and that paid a bunch. So I was really happy about that too.
Any more questions? Yeah, that's a question here.
Hello. So for someone aspiring to do bug bounties, one piece of advice I've heard is to combine something like the resources on OWASP, and then to try and match them up to particular scopes within something like HackerOne. Could you expand upon that sort of basic framework for dealing with bounties at all?
So I'm going to answer this question in two parts. I'm going to give you some better advice, because I don't think that advice is very helpful for most people. But then I will attempt to like explain that advice a bit more. My number one piece of advice, if you want to do bug bounties, is just go do it. I cannot tell you how little preparation I had before I found my first bounty. I had never seen a request before. I was a web developer. I used to make APIs, and that's how I kind of got started. I have a degree in computer science, but I didn't know anything about cybersecurity. I had the option to take a cybersecurity unit while I was at university, and I was like, nah, that's going to be too hard. I'm just going to take the web dev unit instead. I mean, great for like optimizing my grade, but how much that actually helped when the company I worked for had a security incident and my only response was switch the server off, probably not that helpful. But I was really unprepared. Like, I knew absolutely nothing. The fact you are at one of these events, you are already more qualified to be doing bug bounty hunting than I was. Like, I basically ended up here accidentally. And when you speak to a lot of bug bounty hunters, that's kind of a very repetitive story. A lot of people aren't engaging with communities like OWASP. If they did, it'd be a huge advantage. But honestly, the best advice I can give is just have a go. Just get started. There's no critical mass of knowledge that you need to be able to find bugs. You just need that kind of, oh, I wonder what happens if I do whatever. Now, I think there is something to be said for like the idea of a very academic approach to going, well, here are the OWASP top 10. I'm going to search for the OWASP top 10. Or here's the OWASP LLM top 10, and taking that approach, or using something like the mobile testing guide, the web testing guide that's available. It's very much focused more on pen testers who need that like broad scope of issues. But saying that, I am always for the idea of like using knowledge. Like a lot of people say, oh, you should start with one vulnerability and hunt for that everywhere. Terrible advice. Look for a bunch of different vulnerabilities, constantly be upping your AppSec knowledge of vulnerabilities. And one of the best ways that I found to do that was actually making YouTube videos, because I would look at disclosed reports and be like, how can I explain that to my audience? And that kind of forced me to really learn those topics deeply. Now, I think there's a lot you can do with that idea of, okay, take the OWASP knowledge the same way. Look at disclosed reports, look at things like the OWASP top 10 and the web testing guide and see where those kind of intersect. Like, are they doing a formal recon process? Are they searching for cross-site scripting or whatever, right? Injection type vulnerabilities. That is a way of getting into it. I will say most bug bounty hunters I know are some of the most chaotic people. Like, they're completely not organized at all. The pen testers are much more organized than we are. We like roll up to a conference, spend the first day in our rooms hacking, and then by day 2 we're like, oh, I found a critical vulnerability on Amazon last night. It was really cool. No, I can't tell you anything about it. I signed an NDA. Oh my God, I just got $100,000. Let's go to roulette. Genuinely happened to me. Like, I was like, I live in a completely different world to these people. But yeah, bug bounty hunting is by its nature a little bit chaotic. And that's kind of the advantage of, I think, bug bounty hunting as a security program. The idea that, hey, you know, attackers aren't using the OWASP web testing guide. They're not using the mobile testing guide. They're not using the OWASP top 10. They're like just finding vulnerabilities. And the power of that is very much on the in the crowd, if that makes sense. So hopefully a very long-winded answer for your question.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Katie. Let's thank Katie for an awesome talk and fantastic insights. We're going to go into a break now for 10 minutes. Don't forget, you will need your key fobs to get back in if you're going to go to the toilets, which is right at the end of the corridor there. And I'll see you here in 10 minutes. If there's still pizza and drinks to finish, please make sure you use them. Hello. Okay, everyone, we're about to restart. Can you please come back and take your seats? Okay, everyone, please take your seats. Make sure you're ready for the next presenter. Okay, our next presenter flew in here all the way from Canada. So thank you very much, Tanya. This is a thousands of miles journey to be here. We're very thankful. For those of you who regularly attend our meetups, you know that Tanya was here exactly a year ago at the same venue, by the way, where she presented another awesome talk. If you missed it, it is available on our YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe, you don't miss it next time, and you can watch all the recordings of all talks presented at OWASP London on our YouTube channel. So Tanya is one of the probably most famous people in application security, because as I said, she literally wrote the book on it, and actually it turns out she now wrote 2 books that you can see that she put on her LinkedIn profile here. There's called Alice and Bob to Application Security, right? And there's the second one about Alice and Bob doing secure coding. Okay, now the second book is not out yet, but it's available for a pre-sale, I believe. So it's very nice. I think we had Amit here with the first book. So there is at least one person with a copy of your book who is going to need the book signed, Tanya. Awesome. So Tanya's been one of our awesome OWASP activists for many years from OWASP Ottawa chapter. She also worked on the OWASP DevSlop project. She has a podcast. She has a blog. She spoke at numerous conferences all over the world. I think all continents covered by Tanya. She was absolutely everywhere. And actually, those of you attending the NDC conference later on, Tanya flew in and she will be speaking at NDC conference as well. So we are very thankful to have you here in London, Tanya. And let's everyone give Tanya a very warm welcome.
Thank you, everyone. This is a talk that I wrote because I do consulting with this American, so I'm Canadian, but mostly Americans give me money. And I work at this place called IANS Research 1 to 2 hours a week, which might sound weird, but I do these calls with these different giant companies, and I talk with their AppSec teams and I help them mature their programs. And so I was trying to decide what my next talk should be about. And I thought about it and I'm like, what if I just give the advice that I give to these? I looked and it's almost 400 companies now that I've worked with. And I find that a lot of companies fit into one of 3 models if they're having problems. And so we're going to talk about the 3 models. And then more importantly, we're going to talk about how to improve them, because I really want us to all do a lot better. And so that's where this talk came from. And there's a couple of cute jokes in it. And there's a lot of really weird AI images. So you are allowed to laugh really hard when people have 3 arms or 7 fingers, etc. So it is absolutely okay to giggle at my slides, because I giggled when I made them. Okay, so that's me. I'm Tanya. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about common AppSec models. Ooh, I wish it was on the screen so then I could like not look like that. I really like to be closer. Oh, wait, there we go. We're going to talk about why they fail. And we're going to talk about how we can do better, which is like pretty simple sounding. It's pretty simple sounding. I'm hoping that at the end, you're going to feel empowered so that you're like, I got this. So let's see. You can give me feedback after and tell me if you're like, I have some ideas that I think I can take back to work. So how I conducted my research. So since 2018, I've been doing these calls, 1 call, 2 calls, sometimes 7 calls a week with all these different companies. And I check in with them every few months and see how they're doing. A couple of companies, I would check in with them every week, but usually it's like every quarter or maybe even every 6 months. And I just help them do better. And I get great satisfaction out of this. I really like it. It's exciting. I actually get paid money for it. So I do stuff. So I'm known as She Hacks Purple because I kept doing blue team and red team and I just couldn't make up my mind. And so people started calling me purple team. Then I dyed my hair purple and just all hell broke loose. I've written some books. I've worked in tech a long time. I've done some OWASP things, some startup-y things. I give advice. I do research. Hopefully you're like, that's good. I find this part boring. Let's get to the talk. Let's talk about maturity, right? Because that's what we want. I went to a dinner last night with a whole bunch of AppSec professionals, including Sherif. And one of the people sitting next to me was like, why are we failing so bad? He's just like, why? Why do you think we're failing so bad? And I'm like, why do you think we're failing? And he's like, so my answer was, we're not really educating everyone about AppSec. We go to university, we go to college. Did anyone learn how to build an AppSec program there? No, right? And we're not teaching this and we're not sharing. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I do the blog. That's why I do all the talks, because I want us to move forward on this. And so he basically said the same thing, but also he said he felt people don't care. Can I just take a quick survey of, do people think that no one cares about security? Because I really do. I really, really do. But does everyone else, or is everyone just like, I'm tolerating Tanya right now? I can't wait till Katie's back. Do we feel so put your hand up if you feel at work like people do care about security. Okay, this makes me feel a lot better. Thank you. But thank you for the honest people that kept their hands down, because I got to work on that. I'm going to work on it with you. Okay, so maturity models. We have OWASP SAM, we have BSIM, we have NIST, and more recently, oh no, back. More recently, we have DSOM, which I think is a giant step forward. Has anyone used any of these? Okay, who found them really, really intimidating and hard? Yeah, when I show one of these to a client, most of the time they like crawl into a little ball and then they cry. And so I have to more like, they're nowhere near this. Most companies, like even 1% of OWASP SAM, they're just like, oh my gosh. And it's not that they're not good. It's that our industry is nowhere near that. And I went to an OWASP SAM user meetup, which was awesome. And they had done a survey of their regular users. And so SAM is rated from 0 to 3. And the people that have been going every week for years, on average, had 1.1. I can't have a client get 0.1. I can't have a client get 0.1 out of 3. They're going to fire me, right? Like they're going to be like, I suck so bad. So I have to start smaller. So that's why I'm not talking about these. And that's why I believe that they haven't been better adopted, not because they're not great, but I don't have $27 million to do BSIM. No, but seriously, you need 7 figures, not 6 figures to do BSIM. You just do, right? If you want to do OWASP SAM, you need 7 figures. Who here has a 7-figure security budget? I never have. Anyway, okay, sarcasm over. Okay, on to the models. This is my favorite OSI model. Okay, so more seriously though, spot the AI weirdness. So this isn't an AI generated one. We're going to get into the weird AI images now. So model 1, I call this just pen test the important stuff. So I've worked at a lot of companies where they're like, yeah, we have 80 apps and we pen test 2 per year. And that is our entire AppSec program. And the pen tester comes in and they don't need to be Katie to be awesome. This person does not need to be very good. And they, like Katie, would come in and destroy the place, but in a good way, in a friendly, very professional way. But like they come in, the devs have had 0 training, the devs have had 0 support, they have 0 tools, there's no requirements, there's 0 guidance. Yeah, I found 100 bugs. You better believe it, I did, right? And so this model, why is it bad? So there's usually no formal system development lifecycle, right? Some of them are doing waterfall. Some of them are saying they're doing agile because they're not doing documentation and they think that's what that means. Some people have a CI that they use sometimes and they're like, that's DevOps. I'm like, it's not. They have a mixed tech stack usually when I go to these companies. So they're like, oh, they're using Java, they're using Ruby, they're using OpenAI, they're using GraphQL, they're using this, they're using that. Everyone's using something different, which makes it really hard. There's code everywhere. Oh yeah, we keep it in the code repository, all 27 of them. Everyone's just doing their own thing. Why is this model bad? I feel like everyone's a cat, all doing their own thing, and you're trying to herd them in the same way, and all the cats are like, I shall do as I wish. It's really hard without standardization to secure this, right? It's really, I would say the worst thing about this model, in my opinion, is that you hire the super brilliant expert pen tester to come in, they do pew, 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 they find lots of things wrong, and then they give a report to that team. No one learns anything. You've invested nothing in your staff. So you are doing the most expensive possible way to find those bugs, and you are not teaching anyone anything. So I don't love this model. But how do we mature this model? So if you're doing this model, I assume you do not have a giant budget. So I have prepared we have no money plan and a we have some money plan. I'm not assuming you have a lot of money for this budget, and that's okay. I have had 0 budget a lot of time. They're like, you have as much time as you want. You have $0. Go, Tanya. Okay, just a second. Why is the heading not coming up? Fun times. Okay, well, there's supposed to be a heading here. I wonder what it was. Okay, so first, let's start using some free tools. So I'm a huge fan of Zap. I'm a huge fan of Burp. I work at SemGrep, so I'm very biased, but I think we're great. There's Breakman, Bandit, Find Bugs. There's lots and lots of awesome free tools that you can use. And start testing things. Even if you're not very good, you will find tons of things wrong because no one's looked before you, right? You're going to look like a genius, which is great. Create a secure coding guideline. So I give one for free away in my free academy from SemGrep, which I'll show at the end. So I will give you a very basic one for free to start you off if you don't have one. But if you have no guidance for developers, you have a problem. You're not going to get what you want. So you need to tell them what you want. And a guideline really helps. I don't mean a stick that you hit them with. I mean, you're like, this is what I would really like to see. Can we work towards this? I create a list of security requirements for all new projects. And it's also available in Academy for free. So I'm telling you a lot of this so that you can just go grab it later if you desire. You do not need to use mine. You can make your own. But if you're going to start a new project, you want to know what they need, or they want to know what you need from them. And so if you're doing a web app, there's certain requirements. If there's an API, there's certain requirements. Like if an API is going to be on the internet, I would love it if it was behind an API gateway, because it'll be way safer there. And then I want you to flip on all sorts of things like rate limiting, resource quotas, authentication authorization, input validation, all the awesome settings, right? So you put that in your requirements, and then you get more of what you want. The next thing, this is a hard one. Okay, I'm not going to pretend it's not hard. Get all your code in the same place. I don't care which code repository you use. I care that you all use the same one. This is a huge project. This could take up to a year if you work at an organization where they're using many, many. But when you do this, you can point a bunch of scanners at all your code and scan it all the time and automate it. And you can save tons of time. And then you also know actually where things are, and that's better, right? You're reducing a lot of business risk when you do that. And this is a project that you can team up with the head of IT. This is a project that will be of value to everyone where you work, not just you. And then lastly, on this page is push for a real system development lifecycle. This is hard too. You're not in charge of the devs. You have to use persuasion. I had to learn a lot of social skills to work in AppSec, which I was surprised about. I couldn't just be a dev and just code the way I wanted it. I had to convince people to do what I wanted. This is a hard one too. So if you can get everyone to move towards the same system development lifecycle, if you can move towards centralization of things, life goes way, way better. But there's more. We moved this to Google Slides right before this, and it's not supposed to be a wall of text at you. It's supposed to be one thing, and I talk about another thing. And also that guy's arm's amazing. So if you can, try to have a threat model for the important apps. So remember before, we just pen tested the 2 super important apps. So do a threat model on them. And then try to mitigate things that scare your pants off. A threat model can be 1 hour. It can be a 1 hour brainstorming conversation, and then you write some emails after. It does not have to start really complicated. It can get that way. You can make it quite formal, quite extensive, but it doesn't have to be to start. And so if you start doing that, I like to start with Adam Shostak's 4-question frame for threat modeling. It's just 4 questions. The guy's brilliant. I had done threat modeling a whole bunch before I read this paper, and I was like, oh, I can throw all of that out and just do this. So what are we working on? What could go wrong? What are we going to do about it? And then did we do a good job? Which is like your mom being like, really? For if you've accepted every risk. Okay, so next, if you've had security incidents with your software, talk about it if you can. I know sometimes we can't, right? I know sometimes it's not allowed, but if you can talk about it, that helps tell developers what's going on. I remember some software developers, we shared that with them, and they're like, we had no idea we ever had incidents. I'm like, we're literally on fire and also drowning at the same time. And they just didn't know. And by sharing with them what was happening, all of a sudden a ton of light bulbs went off and they were more interested in security. If you have some apps that make you want to cry, because they're very, 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 very insecure. So like imagine you fall and you skin your knee. You often put a Band-Aid over the wound. I like to think of really bad apps as wounds on our organization. And I put a Band-Aid, a WAF on top of it. Is that instead of healing and doing a good job? No. But is it temporary until we can do better? Yes. So I don't do WAF instead of good AppSec. I do it as a wound and we heal it. So we protect it while it's getting better. And then lastly on this, you still pen test your important apps. But now when you get the report, it's not completely ridiculous, right? It's not like 20 highs and 5 million mediums and 3,000 lows. You're like, oh, 1 high, 2 mediums. All right. And then you fix them and you have time to fix them because there's not a trillion things wrong. And so this is the free plan. But I also have the if you have some money plan. See how she's like all confident? She's like, yeah, I have budget. And so if you have a little budget, the best thing I think you could possibly do with money is hire an AppSec person. Hire a person that loves OWASP, that loves security, that cares so much. that person can do all of step one for you, right? That person can do all sorts of things for you. Your first AppSec hire will change so many things in your organization, especially if they're a talker like me. If they're willing to like go talk to the devs, spend time with them, it will really change your culture. And then of all the tools, so I am extremely biased. I work at a company that sells one of these. So hear my bias. But I would not pay money for a DAST. I would use the cool free and almost free ones, like $500 for a burp. Yes, please. But I would get a next generation stack analysis tool instead of a free one, because the free ones, you pay with your time. And so if you have slightly more money than time, paying for one of these will save some time. And then third, don't pay for DAST. Just use the free one, even if you have leftover money. Okay. And then you still do all of step two. So you still have to do all the free stuff, and you make that AppSec person do it. Okay. So now to model two. I call this tools, 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 and more tools. I know. So imagine a whole bunch of partially rolled out tools. So you're paying for like 300 licenses, and you absolutely are using 40 of them, even though you bought it 2 years ago. You have so many bug reports. You have hundreds of bug reports, but no one's fixing almost any bugs. Like you have 40,000 bugs in the backlog, and this month you fixed 4. Your program's wildly inconsistent. So some apps get a lot of attention and other apps get 0 attention. They always have a static and dynamic tool. They always have both of those, and every other tool, I don't know, it depends. They might also have IS, they might also have linters, they might also, but they always have SAST and DAST. Like those are the standard that you have to be a grown-up, which I don't necessarily agree with. They usually have pretty much no security documentation, or if they do, it's 150 pages long and no one's ever read it. And why won't the developers fix any of the bugs? Why? And I ask, have you spoken to them and asked them? And they're like, why would I ask them? Like every time they're like, why won't the developers fix bugs? I'm like, did you ask them? And the answer is 100% no. So why is this model bad? I can't see my notes, so I'll just tell you my thoughts. So again, you're paying quite a bit of money for this program. Like between having some like 1 or more AppSec people, between all these tools that you're purchasing and then not getting the full value for, you're paying quite a bit, and you're getting kind of not that great security. Your coverage is wildly inappropriate. So like one app's pretty good, and then that app no one's ever seen it. You're all like, your security posture is like this, right? And so you have no idea where you're at, and no one's super pleased with you either. Like no one's in love with this program. And so how do we mature this program? So generally, okay, so I asked the AI to give me a picture of a little girl growing up until she's an old woman, and it gave me this, and I was like, I'll take it. Right? That's what I'm going to look like when I'm old, that last lady. I'm definitely the third lady now. Anyway, how do we mature this program? Oh my gosh, AI. Oh, I guess I don't get to know how I mature this program. Oh, okay. Awesome. So just nothing on my slides. So I believe that this was do everything that was in the free version of Model 1. I think I'm going to need some help here, Sam, because if I can't see anything my slides say, it's kind of hard. Can we do like maybe speakers notes? Is that a thing that we can do? I just need the headings, and all the headings are hidden. And if there's nothing but a picture, I'm not going to get all of it right, as much as I've done this presentation a bunch of times. I don't know why it's hiding all my headings. I thought I was doing great up until this point, for like a lot of things missing. Also, can we give a round of applause for Sam? I really appreciate Sam helping me, because I did not do this, right? He did this, and he's helping make it work. So can you do presenter view? So if you go up to, where is, so slideshow, click that little arrow to the side and then say presenter view, right? And then, oh no, then everyone sees both. Okay, well,
It's a screen share.
okay, can we do it so that we just see the slides normally and it's not presenting? I don't need to see my notes. I just really need to see the headings. So if we just make this really big as you can, like maximize the whole window and make it as big as we can. This is less beautiful, but then at least we know. So up there, that green thing. Okay, there, better. Okay, so I don't think this is some power. Okay, okay, cool. So let's not edit. Okay, so let's see if we have some headings now. Oh, there's still absolutely no headings. Oh man. Okay. I don't know why Google Slides did that.
Yeah, I think it's a part where you export it from PowerPoint to Google Slides.
Okay, well then I'm gonna do it from memory and we'll just see how good it goes. Oh, I have my laptop too, but by the time we connect this, then to connect the thing and then connect the thing, everyone's just gonna hang out. So slideshow, let's just do it. Button? No. I pressed the slideshow button and then it got worse. There we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this slide's supposed to say, hire another AppSec person. So this assumes you have one or more. I would hire another one at this point. So you have like a trillion tools that aren't really rolled out. You have all sorts of started projects that aren't complete. Another AppSec person can help, but it's very, very important at this point when you go from one AppSec person to two AppSec people. There are two types of AppSec people. I know that there's lots, blah, 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 but really there's two. And one is the badass pen tester person, and the other is the person that does all the other AppSec things. So there are certain people that are really amazing at testing and you really want one of those. And then there are people that will like talk to people, they'll like go help devs, they'll write documents, they'll do a threat mail, they'll do all the other things. You need one of each. You can't have a team that's all badass pen testers, and you can't have a team that does not know how to test. So you have to figure out how to get both of those onto your team. That's very important for this one. The next one is, so if you bought tools, use all of the tool you paid for. If you are not using all of it, there could be a bunch of reasons. Sometimes it's because the tool totally sucks and you should just get a new one. Sometimes it's because the previous AppSec person had so many things going on, they had no time to roll it out. But I remember starting somewhere and we had a tool, which I will not name, and we'd had it 2.5 years and 9% of the devs had used it that year because I could see 9%. We were paying 160,000 American dollars for it, which is like 10 trillion Canadian. And that's a lot of money. And so I talked to the devs and I was like, why aren't you using it? And they made this like, I'm afraid, don't hurt me face. And I was like, it's that bad? And they're like, yes. I'm like, then I'm going to throw it in the garbage and I'll start again. And I worked with them and I had them help me choose the tool. And then they used it. They used the new one. And I actually found one that was cheaper because I found a startup and they seemed to like the tool. And then I was able to negotiate down the price and everyone was happy. So if no one is using your tool, there's a problem. So you want to get your full money that you pay for. Okay, next one. I have no idea what this one is. I'm sorry. There's only so many things I can memorize. And I already did 7 hours of talks today before this one. It's the anime lady. My kids love anime. So I was like trying to be on side for that. There. Oh, that's the one that I said on the last slide. I wonder what the last slide was about. That's okay. Let's just go to the next one. We'll figure it out. I do not know what. I don't know what's going on. So we can't use PowerPoint and then share the PowerPoint. No, it doesn't work. Because PowerPoint, it works. Oh, I did, because I uploaded a PowerPoint version, and then Google is really special.
I think there's text here that you can't see in the, okay, hold on.
But clearly it's not there. I'm sorry, everyone. What that slide was supposed to be is make time to talk to software developers and be there to answer questions. This is some of the hardest advice that I have to get, because it's hard to make time because you're responding to security incidents. You're like, oh, I have to roll out this tool that I bought. Oh, my boss wants some silly report on metrics that I don't think actually matter. And you have all these different things you're doing and everything wants your attention. And then the dev's like, hey, I was wondering about this algorithm for encryption and if I should use this or this. If you don't answer them, do you know what's going to happen? They're going to ask Stack Overflow. And Stack Overflow's answer is going to suck. And I love Stack Overflow and I hate it. I love and hate it a lot, because whatever's voted to the top usually has had all the security removed, right? Not always, but quite often. And so you really want them to come to you first, not OpenAI, not. Can we go to the next slide? The slide after this, can we go that one? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to tell a joke while we wait. Yeah. So at least it has some words on it. So why can't you hear a psychologist pee? The P is silent. It's terrible. Okay, so small interruption in the talk, but hopefully you're like, I have some clue as to what she was talking about. So we're trying to mature model 2, where you just have a bunch of tools and you have a bunch of things not going well. And so ideally, you would start handling security incidents in a more organized way. Because I find companies, they have like a ton of tools, they're frantic, they're all over the place, the code's everywhere, everyone's doing a different SDLC. Do you think they have a really amazing way that is streamlined, that goes very well, that they respond to security incidents? Not usually. And I'm talking about software incidents. How many people here, well, okay, if I ask you if software incidents, everyone's going to put their hand down. So in your mind, are you aware that you are having software incidents? Because a lot of you are and you don't know. And so you want to create a way for software developers to easily report that something is not right. You want to train them, which is what I did this afternoon, on what you need from them. Like, what is need to know? What does an incident look like? What should you do? Please don't touch anything. You want to have a process where the incident responders know when to call the AppSec team, or they have some AppSec knowledge so that they can actually respond. I remember when I first was like, oh, that's a software incident. Oh, that's bad. We should do something. And then I got dragged in as the dev because I could read code, and then I could write a script, and then I could do this, and then I could do that. And they're like, you're on our team now. And I was like, this is the best. So we want to make it easy to report incidents, and we want to make sure we have a process that works. Nice. Okay, so this is model 3, and whether there's words or not, I'm just going to go with it. So I call this the stranglehold giant spend. So I have worked with many, like way fewer companies that do this, but this is where they own every single tool. One of them owned 11 AppSec tools. 11. They had like 2 DASTs, like 3 SASTs. And all of them were in their CI/CD that took only a day and a half to run. And if you wanted to make a change, it took months. I worked at one place where there was a 21-step approval process for me to run one scan, and I had to do it for every scan. And a truly emergency scan could be done in 3 weeks. Wow. And they got nothing done. And everyone was angry all the time at us. Look at that dog. Wow. And also just like no words at all. Like we're just like, we don't need any text. So why would this model be bad? Right? Well, We have friction constantly. Everyone's ticked off at security. We have completely stopped innovation. We have employees that aren't happy. We're spending a fortune. And although we have better security than Model 1 and Model 2, we're paying 5 times as much. And it's certainly not 5 times better security. Everyone's miserable. I've worked at places like this on the security team, and I'm like, I'm on the security team and I hate us. And so this model, you have a sad dog in a weird cage thing. Oh, look, there are words. Oh, this is awesome. Okay, so, wait, okay, bad. So there's no interaction between the developers and security. They don't speak. I actually went to one place once where my boss referred to them and us. And they were in a separate building, them, the devs. And I remember one of the devs had responded to one of our emails using the F word, and they had CC'd all the management and the client. And the security team's like, wow, see how awful they are? And then I read the thread and I'm like, it is all our fault. I am amazed that the dev did not use the F word many, many emails before this. I would not. Oh, you just you humiliated the dev. You told the dev what to do and you were wrong. You went, oh, it is awful. And so most of all, you're paying for a fortune of security and you're not getting it. And so why is this model bad? I think it's obvious why this model is bad. And that's why this is the biggest of the dragons. So how do we mature this model? So the first one, which is hard to tell when there's no words, is that we need to start actually having communication. We need, if anything, the security team, this might sound odd, but going on communication training could go a really long way, or even mediation training. So ironically, when I was a dev, I volunteered for this group, and then somehow I ended up getting sent on formal mediation training, which I use all the time for AppSec. It's really valuable to be able to bring two groups together. And communication training, you might be thinking, well, I speak English perfectly. I'm from England. We invented that. Yes, I know you have great language skills. It's more about how to talk to people to get the thing you want, how to get them to see each other's side. And that can be hard. The next thing is if possible, start either a security champions program or start what I call a security advocacy program. So a champions program is where you have one person from each dev team that is the champion of security. And you train them, you teach them tons of stuff, and you meet with them ideally once a month. You show them lots of things, you give them extra responsibilities, and they lead the security activities for their team. Cool beans. It helps you reduce friction. It helps you build relationships. It helps you scale. It helps them learn security. It looks good on their resume. It helps them get promoted. Everyone wins. But an advocacy program is where you work on the culture. And that is often similar. You do lots of talks, you do lots of meetups, you do consultations. So let's say you're going to do a new policy. You don't just say, here's the policy, follow it or die. Instead, you're like, I'm working on this policy. May I please have feedback? I'd like to, here's a copy. Please submit comments. I'd like to have meetings. I'd like to talk about it. I need your feedback. And then you actually listen to the feedback and make changes accordingly. So they've been heard. You're not just pretending, you actually listen, right? And then they are very smart. They'll help you improve it, right? And it'll be better. And so basically one of those two things will help you scale and help you improve the entire relationship, because that is the thing you need to work on. I know you thought this was a tech talk. This is supposed to be make it a standard. So in the past one, the one now that I remember I forgot, was that we should provide guidance. So every time anyone brings a new technology in, ideally, you're the security team, you're like, I would like to help you with some security guidance on that. And what I actually do is I go and I Google a lot and I search a lot and I learn about it. And I often end up on the OWASP website. And I write up a one-pager of guidance. And then I go and I meet with them and I pretend I'm very smart and I thought of those things. And then we talk about it and I'm like, I'd really like this. I'd really like that. Can we do these things? So in this one, in level 3, ideally, you've already had guidelines and you're turning them into standards. And not a standard so you can run around and hit people, but a standard from now on, we're gonna aim for this. All of us are aiming for this. And if you aren't there, I'm gonna help you get there. So I'm not gonna run around and fire people. I remember the first time I did a secure coding standard instead of a guideline, and one of the team leads met with me with his whole team, and partway through, one of them's just like, "Are we getting fired? Oh my gosh, please don't leave me. Don't go. No, 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 no one's getting fired. No, no, this is where I want us to go, and I'm going to help you do it." And she's like, oh, okay. She's like, "I thought this was the first step to getting rid of all of us older devs that weren't super modern and chic." I'm like, oh, no, no, no. The next one, so at SumGrip, a motto, like one of our company values is make it go fast. And we obsess over going fast. And devs love going fast, right? And so you want to tune all your tools, you want to tune all your processes and make things go as fast as humanly possible, because we are being very annoying and that causes friction. And I'm sure all of you are annoyed too. If you're doing this model, you're like, oh my God, my job sucks. So do everything you can to make everything go fast. And if you can, as a bonus, make things self-service. Every single thing that's self-service, you don't have to do, right? That's less work for you. And then the dev's like, I'm in control. I don't have to wait on them. This is awesome. So that's the make it go fast slide. This slide, I wonder what it's supposed to be about. Oh, okay, this is about APIs. So this is the Katie slide. So at this point, if you do not have API specific tooling, that's a thing you would want to invest in. So don't have two DASTs, have one DAST that is good, and then get something that is specific for your APIs, that can talk to APIs, that can inventory them. Whatever it is that you need to focus on, you need tools that are smart about APIs, because they're just not the same as a front-end web app. Like if you have an expert using Burp Suite, they can do amazing things with an API. But if you don't have one of those experts, then you need a special tool. So either expert or API tools. This one, nice. I don't know. Next one. Oh, wait, no, I went backwards. Wait, okay, there we go. So this one is continuous scanning. I know, I appreciate you, Sam. You're trying really hard to help me, and I appreciate you a lot. So continuous scanning. So if you can ignore all the marketing where they're like, we're constantly checking you all the time. That's not what I mean. I mean, hooking up your SAST, your SCA, your secret scanner, if you have a linter, anything that you can hook up to your code repository and have it scan every week. Schedule your DAST or any sort of automated, more interactive type of test to run every week. Schedule things so they're going quite often, so that you have updates about how you're doing, because things change, even for old apps. Even though you haven't changed the app, things change. There's new signatures they're checking for. There's new types of tests they know how to do. The dependencies don't age well. There's lots of things that could change. And so set up automation as much as you can so you can actually do cool work that's interesting for you. Because running scans manually, unless you're a pen tester, because you're doing way, way more than pressing the scan button. Just pressing the scan button is very boring. All of you are very smart. You have better things to do. So automate, automate, automate. This one is try to get training. So we should be training our devs. So if they design software, secure design and threat modeling. If they write code, secure coding. Also, I would just love it if everyone had threat modeling training, but that's me. I might be biased. It's really important that the training you choose works for your devs. I get hired a lot because they bought a system or and it sucked and no one used anything. And so if you are going to expect them to do training at night on their own time, is that realistic? If you're expecting them to do the training on their own laptops, do they all have one? Are they cool with doing a bunch of training like that? If you expect them to read a whole bunch of textbooks, is that realistic? Can you offer them ebooks and physical books and audiobooks so that you can accommodate different learning styles? So try to get training that works for them. And there's lots and lots of options that exist. What matters is that you get training that they will actually do and listen and learn. It does not matter that it costs more or it costs less. It doesn't matter that this other company is doing this. It only matters that your team is actually digging it. I used to have a dev team and I had 2 guys that did Safari books online all day. They just read 1 trillion books and they're super pleased. It cost me $400 or no, like $100 a year. It was super cheap. And then I had another guy that just did Pluralsight all the time. I had one that would go to conferences, one that went to university, and a bunch that I'd bring a trainer in for. And I was like, whatever, this costs less than having you all go to some big school, right? So if you can be flexible and figure out a way that works best for them, and asking for feedback helps, because you don't want to check a box. You want them to write better code. So this one is a contentious slide. So if you have a WAF on the terrible apps that scare you, and you've not been able to improve them so that you can take the Band-Aid off, consider upgrading to RASP, because it's better. I do not own any RASP stock. This last one, I believe, is more incident response stuff. What was I going to say here? Can I escape out of this one? Oh, awesome. Oh, can I just keep this? This is great. He has my notes, guys. Sam's the best. Okay, so train your incident response team on what a security incident with software looks like. Because I remember the team coming to me and they're like, so Tanya. And I'm like, when did this happen? They're like, we've been working on it 3 weeks. And it took them that long to figure out that someone had hacked one of our apps. And that's why our data was on the dark web. And we were receiving all those letters, right? And so it's really, really important to me that you handle incidents the cheapest, fastest, least damaging way you possibly can. And you training the incident response team for like 2 hours can go a really long way, and refreshing them once a year. Ideally, if you can, train every single superpowered team. So that means help desk, that means sysadmins, that means software developers, about their responsibility for an incident. It can literally be just 20 minutes. Okay, so I have a lot of buttons, but don't worry, we've got this. All right, see this super happy dude? Do you know why he's so happy? He is happy because he has based his entire program on metrics. You would not believe, companies paying me a small fortune per hour that have not looked at any of their metrics. Their metrics are not informing their program whatsoever. I would say 80–90% of companies. They're like, oh, yeah, we made slightly fewer bugs last month than this month. Cool, why? I don't know. I need you to know. Let's go look. Did you do training? Did you hire some new people? Did you fire someone? What happened? And we need to go through, and you need more metrics than there's more bugs or less bugs, or we fixed these bugs. There's so much more to an AppSec program. Oh, we responded to security incidents. How did it go? How long did it take to them to like triage it? How long did it take for us to close? How much did it cost? Did other teams get in our way? Did people follow the process? Like, there's a million things I want to know. And then I want to improve my program based on that. I want to set goals. I want to measure to those goals. And then once I've measured to those goals, I can tell if they're working or not. Because sometimes I set a goal and the way I plan to get there isn't the best way. And so I throw in the towel and I start again. And so now, button. All right. Is the conclusion going to show up? Oh, yes, words. This is the best. Aha. Okay, so what did we learn? We learned 3 common AppSec program models. Right? And as a reminder, the first one was just pen test the important stuff. The second one was tools, more tools, everything's completely unorganized. And the third one was the giant spend stranglehold. We're not getting anything done and everyone's angry at us all day long. We learned how to identify the models. So if you work at one of these places, Sam, do you host the slides after? Okay, so you can grab my slides and see the words, and then you can see the plan that can help you. And if you don't get off their site, you can email me and I'll send it to you. Oh, perfect. Okay, awesome. And then we talked about how to mature the models, and that was the main part of the presentation. And I apologize that my slides were not functioning correctly. I'm very sorry. And we talked about how to build an awesome AppSec program, because whichever model you're in, you have tons of space to improve. And I remember one of my friends was like, oh, someone wants to hire me to go do AppSec for them. I'm kind of afraid to leave here and go there because they don't have an AppSec program. And I'm like, literally everything you will do is magic. Everything you do is an improvement. Everything you do is amazing, because right now no one's doing anything. So everything you do is an improvement. And he's like, I'm going to take that job. And he now has a champions program and all sorts of stuff. He's doing amazing things. And now they're a team of 3. And so I'm hoping that at least some of this encouraged you, that you can do better, that you can improve, and that like basically you've got this. You absolutely have this. You can do better if you want to. And with that, I have some resources for you. So at the beginning, I said I would give you a free course that had a whole bunch of things. So all the courses are free in the Academy. There's no upsell. There are courses about our products if you want to learn how to use them, but you don't have to take those courses if you don't want to. Oh, and we sign you up for our newsletter that me and Amanda write, and you can unsubscribe if you need to. I'm biased, but I think it's pretty good. I'm totally not biased. I'm biased. Books. Okay, so there's actually 2 books there. My second book does not have that as its image. Oh my gosh. But basically I wrote 2 books and I am biased. I think they're very good. Next, Cyber Mentoring Monday. Every Monday on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Blue Sky, and on Mastodon, I run a mentoring program. So if you are looking for a mentor so you can learn more about cybersecurity, this is a way where you could try to find one. You just respond to the thread or start your own thread. And if you tag me, then I'll reshare it for you. If you don't tag me, I probably won't see it. Not that good about finding all of them. I always miss some. And you can potentially find a professional mentor. I've been doing this since 2018. If you have 2 years or more experience in what you do for a living, you can be a mentor. I remember the first time someone asked me to mentor her, I'm like, but I've only been doing this for 2 years. I have literally no idea what I'm doing. And she's like, I've been doing this for 0 years. And so you're going to show me. And we've been friends for a decade. And so I encourage you to mentor people. It's so rewarding. TLDR sex. So my friend Clint has this newsletter where he just summarizes all of the research for security. So it's not the news. There's no news. It's just different research that he summarizes every week for free. And I've been reading it for many years. And I'm like, I should probably share my friend's newsletter. And lastly, me. I am a resource. I have YouTube. I have Twitter. I have a newsletter. I have a blog. I do all these things. And I do them for free because I really, really want us to mature our AppSec programs. And with that, I want to thank you all for your patience. Do we have any questions other than what was on those slides?
Any questions?
Yes.
Since you like anime, which is the most favorite anime related to security?
So my kids and my partner like anime, and I hate it, but they love Dragon Prince. A lot of dark themes in that. I'm like, really? Sure, kids be watching this? It's like they're learning about bad friends. Anyone else?
Anyone?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It was brilliant. My question is about measuring application security posture and building roadmap. What kind of maybe tools or approach would you recommend to measure application security posture and build strategic roadmap? But aside from OWASP, SAM, and BSIM, because they kind of overwhelming sometimes with hundreds of practices, and it's very difficult when you have like hundreds directions and you don't know where to go. Maybe you can advise and recommend some tools or approach to in simplified way to measure AppSec program and build.
To measure or mature it?
Measure and build a strategic roadmap.
Okay, so when I do AppSec programs, this might sound odd, but I set goals. And so, for instance, whenever I start a consulting gig, I'm like, give me all your scans. And my plan is to try to do some sort of scan on every single app and make sure I found all the apps and then figure out which apps are terrors, which apps are okay, and which apps are good. And then I figure out what our top 3 problems are. And so the terrible apps, I start an action plan for them. And then I figure out what our top 3 things that we're doing that are bad. And it's always cross-site scripting is one of them, always. And usually we're not using any security headers, so we have no safety net. It's just basically like putting seatbelt on when you're in the car. You're a good driver, but other people aren't, right? And then usually the third one's whatever. And then I do education on those 3. And then I remeasure after 3 months. And then they see all of those go down, and then they renew my contract. And that's my first 3 months. And then after that, I set goals based on what I've learned in those first 3 months. So I'm like, have we done a complete inventory? And is our inventory accurate? Do I know who to call? Do I know how to contact them? Do I know where the code is, et cetera? That's usually one of my first projects. And I go through and I try to decide based on them. But my second piece of advice is in the SoundGraph Academy, I have 3 courses about AppSec, and they're all free. Everything's free. And in it, you learn about AppSec and you build or improve your current program. And it teaches you how to set goals. And it gives you like 15 goals to choose from, but you can just make your own. And then as you learn things, you add to them. And so by the 3rd course, the final project is this 9-page project plan for everything that you need to accomplish those goals and measure them, because that's how I do AppSec. So then I just shared all of it. Awesome. Anyone else?
Okay. If not, let's thank Tanya for an awesome talk. Thanks, Tanya. Next on stage, we have Spyros. I have your slides already.
Yeah, just in case I don't have any notes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. For notes. Yes, that was actually a useful tip. Yeah, if the notes will not work, I have to warn you. All right. Okay. So there goes. I'm not sure if Spyros needs introduction. Spyros did speak at OWASP before. I think that was a joint event with Grant speaking also here at Just Eat, but that was an event upstairs. So when there was a smaller venue here, Spyros runs a very important, as a project leader, one of the very important projects at OWASP, something called OpenCRE. So definitely do check it out if you have no idea what OpenCRE is. Spyros helped us a lot with bringing lots of standards together. And actually, that was the first project where we introduced AI into OWASP, because Spyros and Sherif managed to build a first chatbot for OWASP, loading every single OWASP standard, guidelines, document, and allowing people to ask questions. And I think there was a problem at first because you had to be logged in, and there was a rate limiting, but then I think it started to work very nicely. And looks like Spyros has taken his love of AI further and is going to talk to us what is agentic AI. So there you go, Spyros, all yours.
Thank you. Bit hard to follow these 2 amazing, incredible presentations, but I will do my very best. Hey everyone, I'm Spyros. Thanks for this epic introduction. I do a lot of things. I wear many hats. I'm kind of an OWASP dinosaur. I've been with OWASP for like 15 years since I was a student, and I had a full head of hair. Not anymore. OWASP has been literally my entire career, so this is great. And lately, so I run OpenCRE. It's the largest knowledge graph for security in the world, and the very first security chatbot. Maybe still the only free one. We'll find out. But anyway, lately I'm the co-founder of Smithy Security. It's an open core security tool that focuses on orchestration and reduces noise. Pretty much what Tanya said about maturing AppSec programs and running multiple tools and being lost in tools. We do that. Just passionate about helping people. But I'm not here to talk about what I do in my free or not free time. I'm here to talk about pretty much some AI stuff and some passion of mine. This year, I keep getting recommended on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and well, that's the things I follow. I keep recommending the phrase 2025 is the year of agentic AI. This is catchy as hell. There is, all these articles have about a 70% click-through rate for me because, well, it's catchy, but it doesn't tell you what it does. So I thought that since this is the first OWASP meetup of the year, why don't we start the year by having some definitions and learning a bit all together. So like in the next very few minutes, I will try very hard to say what is agentic AI and can we draw some parallels with what we already know. What are some use cases generally in the world so that we have some ideas? What are some use cases in the security world? Plus, what are we looking at as the Smithy team? And also, what are some security considerations, also known as how we messed up implementing it? And we will try very hard to finish with some resources so that you can all catch up, or you can all have access to the same information we have. We're not about hiding information here. So we start with the basics. What is even agentic AI? Well, Anthropic's definition, I'm not an expert, is imagine a software system that doesn't just execute commands, so you don't tell it what to do and it does it, but takes proactive steps to achieve a goal, this agentic AI. Well, for example, both Claude and ChatGPT can generate images. Both Claude and ChatGPT can be connected to external things that can serve as a callbacks. So you can have a prompt that says, here's a callback to generate images and find the temperature on Cairo and find the temperature in any place on the world. Every time I ask you what is the temperature anywhere in the world, I want an image that shows that temperature. The AI can either use its own knowledge base or generate an image with the callbacks you give it. Agentic AI is also a self-driving car. It has agency to drive and turn and do what it does. Run someone over or not run someone over, depends on if Katie got into the API or not. So that's about it about agentic AI. There is a small difference. If the AI has agency to make its own decisions, agentic. If you have some deterministic code that dips in and out of the LLM to process things, for example, analyzes an image, finds if the image contains a bunny, and if the image contains a bunny, then sends prompt 1, if not prompt 2, then that is an AI workflow. It is not agentic. This is important because I found several resources that said if the AI uses an agent, it is by definition agentic, which makes no sense. So let's talk about some use cases because that was confusing enough and it's already late. Some use cases beyond the staircase that goes nowhere. You can do knowledge augmentation and training. Training humans most of the time, very badly, nowhere close near as Tanya does it, but you can do some knowledge augmentation and training. Essentially, an AI can say, this is a person, customize this for this person. These are some improvements on this person. This is some characteristics of this person, maybe a developer, maybe a security person, maybe a CISO. Explain this to that particular person, and you have these external capabilities to do so. Marketing, exactly the same thing, customization. Customer service, one thing I found that is pretty cool is Display's chatbot can customize invoices now, which nice. The AI can reason based on what you told it, and it can access the world. And I'm going to skip continuous regulatory compliance because I think we can all imagine what is this use case, read some news and figure out what you need to do. But something that is very cool is that OpenAI just registered the operator subdomain, operator.openai.com. According to their docs, that's an agent that controls operating systems. So bare metal command and control via LLM. That is cool. So that's some generic use cases. Let's talk about the OWASP use cases, essentially what we're looking for and what we are passionate about. An easy product security use case is automated and accurate tooling configuration. If my model or if my application can generate, for example, SEMGREP rules and apply them and test them based on the code that I have or the repository that I give it, that saves me time. That is super cool. And it can also cut down on my noise. No reason to see 3,000 fake XSS stuff anymore, XSS alerts. Next one, product security workflow creation. Well, that's what we do. That's what we're looking into very, very much. It is an abstraction on the previous one. essentially, if I can do this with SemGrep, why not do this with every tool I can, but also use the best tool for the job? Find out if my repository contains binaries and then run an antivirus, or if it contains models and then run a model scanner. Next, remediation with testing. That, I mean, everybody who's seen a GitHub Copilot knows what this is. GitHub Copilot requires a model to be trained. With an agent, you can do this without training a model. This is, and everybody who knows, who has trained models knows that this is a gigantic pain in the butt. You cannot just feed OpenAI into your model training and hope for the best. That is not gonna work. Another one that we are very much looking forward to implementing is false positive detection with voting and consensus. This is something described in Chip Huen's book on AI engineering. If you get several agents, several agentic systems to work together, and they can potentially reach a consensus, or at least they can vote, and then you can have more chances of being correct or less chances of seeing a hallucination. Or, depending on your prompts, more chances of seeing a hallucination, depending how bad you mess up. Ask me how I know. And the last one, and there is at least 2 of us in the room that I know that are looking into this, automated and finally accurate threat modeling using some LLM, or at least some AI application. If my AI can deepen out of my code, my AST using SemGrep or Atom or some sort of AST generator, if my LLM can also talk to other systems and decide on every part of my application if it needs to assign a threat, or if that part of the application is talking to an external system that makes it a data boundary, or any sort of threat modeling application, you have a better, slightly better chance of doing accurate threat modeling. It really depends on how you implement it. And because I keep saying it depends, here's how we have messed up. Accuracy decreases drastically, I will say it a third time, drastically, with a number of tools. We tried very hard to give an LLM the ability to program product security workflows. If you only need SAST, do not give it the access to run an antivirus. Guess what? Because it will run it. It will try it. And then you try to run an antivirus on a text-only repository that didn't need it. Tokens wasted, money wasted. Some altman is rubbing his pockets. You get the idea. Another one is permissions. If your AI has access to one method that reads the temperature in Cairo, there is no reason to give it access to the method that reads your AWS access keys. There is also no reason to give it access to the method that deletes a database. Why would you do that? I've seen this done because people are lazy and they forget credentials. One more, human in the loop. Everybody's saying this and shouting this from the rooftops. If an AI does something, get a human to validate it. We saw this many times with threat modeling, where it just draws a picture that looks like this, but with many fingers instead of your threat model. Funds denial is my favorite one. Trust me how many times I've run out of tokens or money while doing a demo. Many. Your use case is amazing, super accurate, until you run out of money, and then nothing happens because you are sending exactly max tokens on every single request. Or a user can send max tokens, because why not? And the last one, and this one is coming from my very good friend and author of OWASP AI Exchange, Rob van der Veer, old-time injections. Do not assume that the LLM will give you clear arguments, right? If you're talking to a database, you still need all the normal database protections. There is no reason to not have them, because the LLM will propagate or even clean the SQL injection for the attacker. It will make their lives easier. And again, if Kate has anything to do with it, it will probably hack the LLM as well. And that's all. Simple, exactly 13 minutes. Some resources. OWASP AI Exchange is what OWASP has to do with AI, run by literally the person who writes the European regulation on AI. It's at owaspai.org. Chip Huyen wrote the book on AI engineering. That's her post on agents. Anthropic's post on agents, they disagree slightly. They agree on some stuff, so good to read both. Frameworks, Anthropic really says you should not be using frameworks because they add tokens to your model, and that's how you run out of money. But I like frameworks because they allow you to prototype faster. LangGraph, AutoGPT, and Bear are all great. And there is Daniel Missler's Fabric that is not exactly an agentic framework, or you cannot do a lot of agent stuff with it, but it has a lot of really cool security use cases. And exactly 13 minutes, thank you. If you have any questions.
Anyone has a question? Oh, Tanya has a question.
So if someone wants to start learning this, where would you suggest they start?
Question. AI Exchange, I guess, or this one?
This is literally the book, and this is right now the most popular blog post on this. Start from this. Anthropic has some amazing resources. And then if you want to pay about 50 quid, this is a great book about this thick, really good. And when you want to do security on this, you don't need anything else. The team that writes this writes pretty much every other LLM on the planet.
Any other questions? No. Okay, great. So we are going to move to the next phase.